Thanks for joining us today, Rachel, and telling us a little bit about what you do on a daily basis. For those of us who don't know what psychotherapy is, can you explain a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, so psychotherapy is a protected term now. So basically, anybody who practices psychotherapy has to be regulated in some way, shape, or form. As a psychotherapist, a lot of it is kind of talk therapy, but it's focused on the behavioral, emotional, and psychological, including cognitive kind of issues that we're dealing with on a day to day basis and kind of working through that on a talk therapy basis in terms of like how to manage some of these issues. So that's kind of the main difference between like a psychotherapist and a counselor, for example, where, psychotherapy, not everybody can just say that they do psychotherapy, of course, but it is kind of just that talk therapy aspect.
What does a typical day look like for you?
Every day is honestly different. There's some degree of consistency in terms of, okay, I know that I'm going to be seeing most of the days anyways, a certain number of clients, whether that's, okay, I'm, back-to-back clients from 9 to 5, 6, 7 clients a day kind of thing, trying to fit in paperwork in the midst of it. Other days I've got longer stretches of kind of off time where I can either do my own thing, I can do some reading, some research, working on extra kind of courses. I can work on paperwork that I'm falling behind on if I need to, kind of more of a catch up or even kind of the business aspect, taxes, tracking, all of that fun stuff. But it really does depend on the day. There's some degree of consistency at times. So like I know, for example, like a typical Thursday often looks the same just because of my like repetitive clients, things like that. But it's kind of nice that every day is a little different, if nothing else.
So you've been practicing since 2019. How has your work changed in that time? Because of course we had the pandemic. So I imagine there's been quite a rapid change in your industry.
Yes. So between kind of going virtual through the pandemic, so that part has obviously changed where now I do have office space so I can offer more in-person sessions. But it's interesting to see kind of how some people either aren't interested or it just doesn't fit scheduling wise. If you're working, 9 to 5 and you want to come in, it adds an extra commute, things like that. And so there are some people who really crave that in person. This is what I want. And other people who are perfectly fine, with a virtual world, which I think is something that is relatively new. Before all of COVID, it probably wouldn't have looked quite so much like that. In terms of even presenting, what we call presenting issues from clients too, I think it's changed quite drastically. The news is a great example where I think you're kind of seeing a lot more things happen in the world, and that's causing a bit more anxiety for people. Not only that, but kind of coming out of a period of social isolation and, kind of detachment. There's that social connection piece that people are craving and that we're kind of really drawing to the forefront as well. And then there's just kind of the sheer numbers of it, right? There's, I think, arguably more people who are kind of recognizing the importance of mental health now and kind of seeking that help, though I know that we're in a very different even financial climate than what we were in 2019 as well. So that kind of plays a role in people's mental health in general, as well as kind of that aspect of seeking help too.
What has been the most challenging thing about practicing?
I think it's been just kind of not only the business aspect of it, so kind of learning, okay, how do I kind of do taxes and receipts and documentation and all of those things that, yes, we talked about in grad school, but it's very different in the real world, I think, or different than what I had possibly expected. And then just kind of that providing, hope piece, right? Really meeting clients where they're at. I mean, it does take quite a bit of time, I think, to really understand somebody and know what they're kind of going through and to provide that hope. So I could say one thing to somebody and that kind of triggers a light bulb moment, as you would think. And somebody else, you could, in a very similar situation, you could say something very similar, if not the same, and it's not really going to land. And so I think kind of that individual aspect, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, I love that aspect of it, but it's also kind of makes for a little bit of a challenge at times when you're trying to kind of provide that hope and trying to figure out what, specifically would work with that client too.
Definitely. What has been a highlight since you started practicing?
I think the kind of follow through for sure, and kind of I'm more of a long-term therapist, if you will, but also kind of seeing clients that started with me and then them kind of getting to that point where they're like, you know what, I don't think I really need this anymore. I think it's really rewarding to kind of see those highs and to be able to recognize, even if I'm still working with a client, to be like, okay, but you remember when you said this, this time last year kind of thing and where you were at and how far you've come, right? It's really easy to kind of get bogged down by what's going on in your immediate circumstances while forgetting that, yes, I'm still going through X circumstance, but I still come so far from where I've come.
Your path, your career path seems, if I would describe it as textbook. You go to high school, you went to University of Guelph Humber, you finished your master's, and then you started practicing. It seems very linear in a world that's no longer linear. What are some of the other paths your colleagues have taken? You know, your friends from GH. What are some of the other areas that people have gotten into from the psych program at GH?
Yeah, so I mean, I know a lot of people who are currently kind of going through even their PhDs in a number of different fields, whether that's child and clinical psychology, educational psychology, developmental psychology, different things like that. People have gone back to do either like their master's in other areas, like social work is a big one, or they've gone to do addiction studies, working with early childhood and education in the more developmental aspect as well. There's been a lot of really great kind of work in that sense. People are working in school systems and government, I'm sure, and kind of research aspects. So there's definitely a wide breadth of variety there as well.
What advice would you give students at GH right now in the psych program?
I think the biggest part is to not only get to know, but kind of befriend, if you will, your professors. I'm still in contact with a number of my professors today, and I think that they really help to kind of shape this very broad idea that I had of I want to like do therapy at some point in time, and they help to kind of shape and help me to understand what like the real world applications of that are, you know. Also making friends, like I still have a number of different friends that I've met through GH that I still keep in contact with today that I can make referrals to or make referrals to in the future, who help me to understand what their perspective are in the fields I can do consults for, I can kind of learn from in that sense as well. I was also very fortunate to be involved in campus. So I was part of a club and I had a job on campus, and, you know, all of these really wonderful aspects helped me to kind of shape where I wanted to go and, you know, who I am as a person, of course, but also kind of like where I wanted to go from here, knowing that unfortunately this time is finite. And so after it's done, what next kind of thing.
I want to thank you so much, Rachel, for coming and sharing a little bit of your life after you've left Guelph Humber. It's been a pleasure, and it's been so nice to hear how successful you've been.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be here.